Welcome, everybody, to QuickBooks Updates, Q3 2024. This is Hector Garcia, yours truly, quarterly QuickBooks Updates. This is the 4 times a year that I sit here for approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours so I can walk you through all the things that QuickBooks Online has added and changed, and QuickBooks Desktop too, by the way, so it's that time of the year as well. So let's get right started. Table of contents. Today we're going to cover, for maybe 10 minutes or so, industry-related news. There isn't actually much to report, but we'll kind of discuss kind of what's going on and talk about my conference, the podcast, and some of the things that I've added to RightTool. Then we're going to go straight into QuickBooks Online Payroll. And the reason why we jump into QuickBooks Online Payroll, it's because it's probably the one most worth to talk about, because the changes are very significant, especially within the context of people converting from desktop to online. And one of the features that people have been clamoring quite a bit, we're going to be actually a lot of the features that have been added this quarter are things that people have been clamoring for. So we'll go maybe 15-20 minutes on that, and then we'll go into QuickBooks Online, and we'll talk about some of the new things that you're expecting: new modern look on the login page, ability to bookmark any page, the new More Actions button that they changed on estimates and invoices, the new products and services screen. We're going to try to go deep into that. Alicia and I, we're going to kind of discover all the weird little things that you're going to see in there. And I deep dived into QBO SHIPENGINE features. I actually went through the whole process, and it was actually quite pleasant, by the way, of printing a label. It's actually really, really easy. Actually, very, very pleasantly surprised at how good that went, how well that went at the first try of the release. Then, depending if we have time or not, we might go deep into QuickBooks Desktop or not, but we're at least going to discuss the new features that were added this quarter in QuickBooks Desktop. Last time I have a venue per se, a avenue to promote my conference. So I have a conference. This is the second year we're having it. REFRAME 2024. Go to reframe2024.com if you have not signed up. It's in Hollywood, Florida, October 16th to October 19th. We're going to have a pre-conference on ChatGPT and AI for accounting professionals, and then 2.5 days of all influential communication skills. We're going to teach you, and I'm going to learn as well, different ways we can change our words, change our language, change our approach to how we talk to customers, employees, team members, peers, software company partners, how we talk to people to reshape the perspective of how people see us, and therefore become more influential and get people to do the things that we ask them to do. Because I find that with accountants, we give a lot of suggestions to our clients, and next month, literally nothing happened. So the conference it's a very immersive conference, breakfast and lunch included. It's a beach resort. It's $1,800, and the very last early bird coupon we're going to issue is Q300. $300 off, expires end of August. So hopefully we will finally sell out by the end of August, and I no longer have to talk about promoting it, and I can concentrate on just planning the rest of the conference. So check it out. reframe2024.com. This is probably the last chance you will hear about it and that you will be able to sign up for it. Okay.
Go back to your reframe slide.
I wanted to introduce you first, Alicia, before you said anything, but go ahead. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I wanted to jump in because Hector shared with me some of the content that he's going to be focusing the conference on, and there was a little book involved, and I loved the book so much, reading it on the airplane on the way home, that I decided that my weekly meetings with my staff, we were going to pick one every single week, and everybody try that during the week to use that one technique. And so we started with the first one just this past week, and I actually was watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and the captain actually used that technique on somebody, and so I saw it live in the field. And so I'm completely fascinated by this way of talking to your clients, and I highly recommend that all of you come to this conference, because I found it useful just in the first week with the very first point in the very first page of the book.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's called, I'm not sure if this is for you, but basically before you make any big offerings to anyone, it is suggested that you start with, I'm not sure if this is for you, but, and the reason for that is because instead of giving somebody a suggestion or an offer, you're saying, I'm not sure if this is for you. Basically, you're taking it away immediately. And then the other person thinks to themselves, they're like, well, I'll be the judge of what's for me. But then you use but, as a basically a cancellation of the last sentence. And people had, for a split second, they had this thought of, wait a second, I'll be the decider of what's for me. So I want to listen to what he's got to say. And then when you say but, you cancel that out, and then people just focus on the stuff that comes after but. Because if somebody tells you you're pretty, but you don't care about you're pretty anymore, you care about the but and what happens everything after. So this is just one of the things that inspired some of the influential conversations, is to be a little bit more assertive on the way we suggest things to our clients. So thank you, Alicia, for reminding us of what, I'm not sure this is for you, but as one of the magic words that we're going to explore in the conference. The book is called Exactly What to Say. Anyway, so Alicia jumped in before I had a chance to introduce her. Alicia Katz-Pollock is the co-host of the unofficial QuickBooks Accountants podcast. She's also been named a top 10 QB Pro advisor, and her profile and list of accolades are humongous. I'm just going to list that one. And check out royalwise.com. She's got tons of educational materials that are really, really worth looking at, especially QuickBooks training and that sort of thing. When Alicia came to me last year and asked me a question, she's like, "How come there isn't a podcast about QuickBooks?" And I was like, "It's a good question. How come there's no podcast about QuickBooks?" And and after a long conversation, we're like, screw it, we'll start the podcast about QuickBooks. So a year ago, we started the unofficial QuickBooks Accountants podcast. Can't believe it's been a year. Over 52 episodes have been released. If you haven't subscribed yet, check it out. It's uqb.show. That's the domain name, uqb.show. And you could subscribe and listen to us every week. It's been a really awesome journey so far. Okay, I'm going to skip this slide and just go straight to RightTool Pro. So if you are not a RightTool user, check it out, righttool.app. And in the last quarter, basically everything that we have added up to August, actually. So everything we added between June and August, we have added a couple of really cool features. One, we have the ability to quickly create sub-accounts in the chart of accounts. So if you have an account, let's say a travel expense, we added a button where you click on add sub-account, and it creates an account, and it automatically selects the main account for you. Basically, it saves you a step when creating sub-accounts. The other thing that we added was the ability to clear 0 lines in invoices. So one of the common things that happens is people will create a template for an invoice. Then the invoice contains, let's say, 27 lines of all the potential things that can go in that invoice. Then when they're duplicated or it's a recurring invoice, they only fill in the numbers that apply to that particular customer or whatever. And then they manually have to delete every single line that has a 0. So what we did is we basically batched it. So when you press that button, every single line on the invoice that has a 0 gets deleted for you automatically. We also added the ability to reallocate expenses. So basically you have an expense to a particular category. Let's say it's $5,000, and you want to take those $5,000 and split it amongst, let's say, 5 classes. You manually have to go in there and pick, duplicate, divide that by 5, and put every class. We have a quick button where you can just press a couple of things, and it automatically splits the one transaction into different classes. And we're also working on doing that for customer jobs as well. We also have the ability to copy bill numbers to memo. This has been requested for a very long time. So when you create a bill payment, and the bill payment has, let's say, 6 bills attached to it, you want to have those bill numbers in your memo. It's useful for when you print the check. It's useful for when you look at reports that contain a payment. It's useful for when you look at list of payments in the vendor list. So we added a quick button where you can open the bill payment, press a button, and it will read all the bill numbers from all the applied payments and add them into the memo description for you. We also added this feature that people are loving, which if you turn on auto open bank feed when switching file, basically if you're an accountant and you switch amongst multiple clients, it defaults to bank feeds instead of defaulting to the homepage. Again, the RightTool is all about saving you seconds with a couple of clicks. And the last feature that we added is the ability to go in the expenses page and see all your expenses, but hide anything that has an attachment. Because very often what we do is we're just looking for expenses that are missing the attachment, so we can go do the work of adding the attachment, but the list is all mixed between things that have attachments and things that don't have attachments. And since QuickBooks Online doesn't have a native filter to remove transactions with attachments, you press a button and we remove them for you in the screen. Actually, and there's one more. It's called change sub accounts, and we're still kind of working on this, but it's the ability to grab a couple of accounts that are sub accounts of a different category and select them in batch, press a button, and it makes them all unsub. It makes them all main accounts, which is actually very necessary when you want to move an account and a bunch of sub accounts from expenses to cost of goods sold, or vice versa. You have to make a whole bunch of things on make them sub account first. So we did an experimental feature where you press one button and it does it for you. So that's actually pretty neat. Okay, so let's jump right to it. Let's talk about QuickBooks Online Payroll. So the first major thing that was announced, I believe, around June of this year, is that your paychecks now have a drop-down button on the top right that says Make Adjustment. And when you click on the top right, you have three buttons. You have Delete, Edit, and Void. So Delete does exactly what you're hearing, right? It removes the check as if the check never existed. Void zeroes it out, so it keeps a record of the transaction itself, but it's just a zero. And Edit allows you to create essentially it's like another paycheck that either minuses or pluses the differences between the first paycheck, and then that paycheck adjustment then adjusts all your payroll liabilities and all your reports to contain the correct amounts. The other thing that they added, and it's kind of part of it, is now you can backdate paychecks. So for a very long time, you couldn't backdate a paycheck when it was older than a certain amount. You can actually backdate paychecks, and it'll let you do that. One thing that's really important is if the tax forms have already been filed, you have to contact Intuit because they have to file amendments. So this editing process and backdating process only works within the current tax reporting period. Okay. And okay, so Alicia, anything to add on this?
I'm glad that they're finally giving us the ability to go backwards, because we have to change stuff all the time, and so if it's still the fact that we still can't go backwards in time is something of a barrier, but that makes perfect sense, because if it's going to affect our state and federal taxes, we do have to have those guardrails. But I am so glad that we can go in and edit or delete and start over again.
Yeah. And QuickBooks will allow you to edit old paychecks that are outside of the pay period. You just have to let them know, because there's no built-in process for amendments. The amendment is a manual process that QuickBooks has to do. It's just the ability for you to press little buttons and do that, on your own, is like that. And the reason why this is different, and it's important to point out, is because in QuickBooks Desktop, you're able to screw up your own payroll. At the same time, it also means you're able to edit your paychecks even past the pay period, but then you manually have to do all the amendments. And because QuickBooks doesn't have a built-in process like that, and QuickBooks is actually moving even farther away from giving you more control, especially when it comes to amendments and stuff like that, because of the very next thing that we're going to talk about, which is tax impounding. So they announced that starting October 1st, so quarter 4 of 2024, starting October 1st, if you have automatic tax forms enabled in your QuickBooks Payroll, what's going to happen is next paycheck you create, it will automatically impound all of the taxes for you, and it will kind of let you know when the money is going to be drawn out, and it will do it basically immediately after you create the paycheck. So before, the way it worked is QuickBooks created sort of an automatic payment, but they could be dated even a month in the future, a quarter in the future, depending on the type of payroll schedule that you're in. And essentially, now the business owner or the person managing the business had to be responsible for making sure that there was cash in the bank whenever that money was scheduled to come out. So what QuickBooks is doing to sort of avoid this whole drama is, and I'm sure this all stems from support calls and Intuit amending returns and dealing with issues with late payments and all that stuff. Now, QuickBooks Payroll will work pretty much the same thing as ADP, Paychecks, all the big payroll companies have done for years, which is you issue a paycheck, it tells you exactly all the money that's going to be coming out of the bank immediately, and all the money comes out of the bank immediately, period. Okay. Now, some people, especially like the finance purists, the time value of money purists, they hate this because it's all the concept of they're holding my money and making interest on my money. And yeah, I get it. You know what? I come from a finance background too, and I've always been a finance purist as well. But our small business clients just don't have the brain power to think about the potential interest rate they can get by holding their or even transferring their stuff from the checking account to the savings account for 17 days until the government takes the money. It's just too much. It's just too much. It takes away from what they want to do. And tax impounding just makes everybody's lives easier. So I think this is a net good. It won't be automatic for everybody. Again, October 1st, if you have turned on automatic taxes in QuickBooks Online. Alicia, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just dropped a link into the chat because the way that I always had to track the payroll liabilities for my clients is I made a customized report that showed what taxes were due and when. Sorry about my throat today. And the amount of time and brain power it takes to make sure that you're going to have the money in the bank, that time that you're taking ate up my interest that I was making anyway. So yeah, I know that Intuit is going to be making money off of the interest, and I'm not going to be making money off of the interest, but that 1%, 2%, even the 5% from QuickBooks checking, this is going to absolutely save all the effort that I had to spend my time doing.
Right. And one thing I like is you're now shifting the responsibility to Intuit to pay things on time. Yeah, so like no longer paying things on time becomes a burden to the business owner. It's now being shifted to QuickBooks Payroll, which I like that. So I went into, just so a quick background, I clicked on the gear menu and then I clicked on payroll settings and I went down to where it says taxes and forms. And the reason why I did that is just to kind of point out that when you click on that, in there, there's a little checkbox for automate taxes and forms. So you would have to have that turned on, okay, in order for that automatic process of the tax impounding to happen. Then when you click on save, it will tell you, okay, what's going on, and then you click on continue, and then now that setting is now turned on. And as long as that's on by the time you reach October 1st, then it's going to go all into automatic impounding. So before we go to automatic impounding, that checkbox, now the purpose of it is to pay the taxes automatically and file the forms automatically. Now the taxes will be paid automatically. The only difference is it will happen prior to the taxes being due. Like the money will be taken out of your bank account. It will probably be put in some sort of escrow account. I don't know exactly the legalities of how this works. I'm sure QuickBooks Online is going to have one big, escrow account, and it's going to be moving that stuff in there. Okay, so that's important to point out. Okay, the other. Go ahead.
Let me jump in for a second. Janice asked a great question. What happens if you edit the payroll before the taxes have been filed? What Intuit's actually going to do is adjust the next impound to accommodate it. So if it needs to be higher or lower to accommodate any changes that you've made, they will adjust the impound.
Yeah, exactly. It will be kind of like your mortgage, when they take the annual taxes and the annual insurance and they estimate how much it's going to cost and they're taking money out, and then there's a change, and then they go back and say, hey, your account's over, your account's under, and it shifts your next payment. So it'll just kind of feel like that if you ever looked at an escrow statement for your mortgage. Next big thing, really big thing, and funny enough, Alicia and I just recorded an episode in our podcast where we completely omitted the existence of this thing because this button showed up 2 days after we recorded the podcast. So now we get a chance to publicly talk about the new edit classes and projects button inside of payroll. Now, this is only going to work in QuickBooks Online Plus or Advanced because those are the only versions that give you classes and projects. And essentially, what's going to happen, and this is a really important piece, what's going to happen is prior to these buttons showing up, if you are in the payroll settings and you go to accounting and edit, you can actually set up how class tracking works on your employees. And this is a global setting. Okay, again, this is prior to the button. Okay, this is prior to the button. There's a global setting, and the global setting used to be that you either don't use classes for payroll, or you use the same class across all the employees, or every employee you can assign, and this only have one employee in the sample file, but if you have multiple employees, every single employee would have its own class. That's how it used to be. So you just generate a paycheck. You don't even have to think about, selecting a class. The paycheck goes straight into that class, period. Simple, easy peasy. That was classes. Then I would say a couple of years ago, they added this additional workflow that if you go and create a timesheet, so I'm going to go into weekly timesheet. So you go and create a timesheet and you pick whatever the time period is, you can actually manually select every single customer that you want to assign that time to, and then how many hours goes to each customer. And if you did that, if you assign the customer into a timesheet, you prepare a paycheck, and behind the scenes, you can't even see it. So it was one of these really weird things that as long as the timesheet was created prior to you creating payroll, again, the timesheet had to exist prior to you creating payroll, the payroll check behind the scenes would allocate the labor through all the different jobs. Now, these classes that you select here, those never allocated in the past. It actually used the default class allocation that I showed you on the other screen. So it would be a little bit misleading that you can have different time entries with different classes. The reason why the classes exist here, the only function that they have here, is when you run a report of time, if you want to filter by class, or if you mark it billable and create the billable item, and you have selected multiple classes per line items in a transaction, you would see the class assigned to it in the invoice. But for costing purposes, you were never, ever able to split multiple classes in a single paycheck, even if the timesheet entry had it split. But the job costing was working. So anyway, that was a long-winded way to kind of introduce this, because it's important to know where we're coming from, and because it's not going to be intuitive, because God knows Intuit has it on its name but not on its philosophy for developing. It's just not very intuitive what's happening behind the scenes. But what's interesting is, if a timesheet exists and you try to run a paycheck, the button is not there. Like you can't click on edit class and projects. Now, I get the logic behind it because now QuickBooks is working in two parallel systems, the old system and the new system that you're seeing in here. But it would be logical for a button here that says, why can I edit my class allocations? You click on the button and it would say, oh, it's because there's a timesheet involved. And then it would be even awesome. And again, this is for developers at Intuit. I'm hoping that you guys are listening and watching. I'm giving you the advice. You're getting free advice that you would spend millions of dollars in R&D to try to find. I'm telling you what we need, okay? First of all, I don't see the button there. You have to let me know why I don't see the button. Two, I want to be able to override. So even if I have a timesheet and now you have this awesome new feature, I want to be able to override and be able to edit class allocations on the fly. Now, let's say I select a pay period that doesn't have a timesheet associated with it, and I get any timesheet. If a timesheet exists, you can use this. So that's obviously a huge problem, because how am I going to? So now I can't use timesheets, and this button. I mean, obviously it makes zero sense. It makes absolutely zero sense. What I haven't tested, and Alicia, I don't know if you have time. If there is a timesheet in QuickBooks Time, if it will still allow if there's a timesheet in QuickBooks Time. But what I found is, if a timesheet in QuickBooks Online exists, it won't give you access to this button. So have you played with QuickBooks Time and this, or not yet?
Not yet. I'm assuming that it isn't. That I think right now they're still just working on the mechanics before they do the integrations.
Right. But I do appreciate it, Intuit, that you gave me the button and I press the button and something happens. I appreciate that, because at least gets the creative juices going. It gets all accountants thinking about what we want to see in these screens, and hopefully gives you the idea on how to move forward with version 2 of this. So anyway, I pressed the button. Now I have a sort of categorized paycheck screen, and in here there's a little plus button where you can actually create multiple lines. So essentially the same thing you would have in a timesheet, you can break it here. So you can do 40 hours to job A, and then 25 hours to job B, and then 17 hours to job C or whatever it is, and different classes. So this is really cool. I literally am able to select a specific class and or project on each line item, and it will grab all of these dollar amounts and allocate them through the jobs, through the classes. This is awesome. Now, a couple of flaws in here. One, and I have to repeat this, if you did it on a timesheet, it doesn't translate over. I don't know why. Again, it's a silo approach to programming things. Like the person that's working on this doesn't know timesheets, and the person that works timesheets got fired 3 years ago, and like they don't know who works on timesheets. So it's this whole chaos on how Intuit develops these things. But for this stuff to work, it needs to be cohesive. QuickBooks Time needs to translate to the timesheet. Timesheet needs to translate to this. It just gotta work. So what you're seeing now is version 1 of this, which is very annoying because I'm used to running timesheets. So again, if you don't do timesheets and then you go back and do this, beautiful. Okay, I love this. The screen is beautiful. It's easy to use. Nothing confusing about this. I absolutely love this. I believe Alicia was showing me an example, this behind the scenes, where it was a salary amount and she was able to allocate by percentages, correct? Alicia was able to do percentage. So if this is an hourly rate, but if you have a salary, you can do percentages. So for example, let's see. So like in bonuses, you have to do like flat dollar amounts in this case. But I think with salary, you can do percentages. So that was pretty neat as well.
The other goes up as percentages instead of hours and dollars.
Correct. The other thing that's really annoying about this, and this was reported by somebody over in one of our Facebook groups, I think it was a RightTool Facebook group, where if you have, and I talked about this earlier, if you had a default class associated with the employee, when you go into the screen, it doesn't show up here. Like you literally have to select each one of these. So keep that in mind, that if you go into this screen, the default class you previously had set up by employee in the settings, if you had done it, doesn't translate over. So QuickBooks developers, please bring that, at least put that in the first line. Let us know how to do it, or maybe a way for us to select one and click apply to all or something like that. We at RightTool are probably going to develop a copy down feature in here if we can do it and release it as soon as possible, because it's going to be so annoying for people that have to go back and run, paychecks for 50 people, and you have to go back and add the class on every single line. The other question we see here live on the chat here is, does it allocate taxes as well? So yes, it allocates taxes and it allocates paychecks. Benefits, I have not tested. I haven't. Alicia, have you tested benefits? So it does. Okay. So if there's, and the benefits would have to be set up inside of the paycheck. Like it has to be run through it has to be paycheck benefits, not things that you pay separately. Right. So it has to be something that removes it from the paycheck, and company portion and employee portion, all that stuff.
Right. So on the screen that you were on just before, you can see bonus down at the bottom. So if you have any payroll items on the paycheck, you'll see all the payroll items on there, and then you can go through and you can allocate all of them or just the ones that you need.
Okay. Sorry, I went back to the screen. Okay. So yeah, that's it. That's it for this process. Then you click on preview payroll. Everything else is the same. You run the paycheck. What I don't know what this looks like, because I haven't run a payroll on this, is if you can then open the paycheck and see the allocation in the paycheck. I am going to assume that you can't. So the only way you can see it is in a report. You have to run a report, pick, paycheck as the transaction type, pick the date range and see it. I don't think you'll be able to, once the paycheck is created, for you to be able to look at the paycheck. I think the most you're going to get is like the edit paycheck screen, where you'll just get this screen here, but you won't see at least not yet, you won't see the payroll allocation. It would be awesome that you could do this. So this edit classes and projects is there, but once you create the paycheck, you can't edit that anymore. I wonder, since you can now go back and edit a paycheck, I wonder if it lets you edit that. Like when you edit the paycheck, it lets you edit that without changing the net of the paycheck. So I wonder. I don't have an answer on that yet. Okay,
that's definitely a level of complexity right there. Can I talk about the reporting?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So right now, because it is kind of, right now it's clear that they're just testing the allocation framework and it hasn't been rolled out to all the integrations and all the reports. So like Hector has up on his screen right now, you can see it. Oh, that's actually my screenshot.
Yeah.
um, when you run a P&L by class, you can see the allocations across the different classes there. And so you'll see it on the P&L, but you don't see it in the payroll reports. I think they're going to have to add a new payroll report that has this information in it. And even when I went back to the projects center where you would expect it to be, it
It wasn't
wasn't
there.
there yet. But my reaction wasn't like, this isn't working. It's okay. They're just still working on the allocation framework interface. I don't think they're ready for us to start using it yet. It's just a matter of seeing it. Where I was able to see it in the reports is there's a report that I use a lot called Income by Customer Summary. Hector, did you make a slide for that one?
I
Um,
didn't, but I'll run the report.
okay, great. So Income by Customer Summary is actually one of my favorites because it shows you the profitability by customer, but it's kind of like a secret hidden report that not a lot of people know about. But it shows you the total income and the total expenses by customer, and it does allocate to here. So I did see all of the payroll by a class in this report.
Yeah. What would be super awesome is if this report had the option to show income and then show expenses broken down maybe by COGS, payroll, regular expenses, other expenses. That would be really awesome.
Well, if you drill in, and when you drill in, it will break out what all those expenses are.
Yeah, but it's still, again, I want to see it on the summary report. Yeah, and by the way, this reaction that you had by not seeing in projects of you saying, maybe they'll add it later. I would be throwing my computer across the window, okay, after I spend all this time preparing paychecks with details and not being able to see it in projects. So I actually I applaud your sense of calmness on this, but like I find it completely unacceptable
Well,
that you build half a feature. Like I just find it completely unacceptable because it's impossible for me to recommend this to my clients that are stuck in QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Enterprise, because in the marketing message, and this is what's going to happen, you're going to go to QuickBooks.com and the marketing message is going to say, oh, by the way, you can now allocate classes and projects, and that's it. They'll check it off their list, and it'll take 6 months to get it working across all the other features.
so here's the thing, Hector. They haven't announced this yet. This was something that somebody found. It's only available on future payrolls that you're not ready to run yet, if you're not using timesheets, if you're not using time. So I think that this is just experimental. They haven't announced it. It wasn't in the know. I think they're just putting it in there to get the mechanics of the breakdowns. So that's why the integrations aren't there yet. Of course, it's going to have to go to projects. I just don't, I think they're just working on the parsing piece of it. It's not ready for
Sure.
prime time. They're hiding it. They don't want you to know about that this is there yet, because if you use it, it might not work yet. So,
Right. But it's in my QuickBooks file. So like at the same time, I get it, but it's in my QuickBooks file. I didn't get an email saying, by the way, you got this thing that almost kind of works. Go ahead and play with it at your own risk. It's just like, if it's, look, payroll is very delicate. You know what I mean? Payroll is very delicate.
but the thing is that you can't use it on your current payrolls. You have to be mucking around with it and running a future payroll to even see it. It doesn't show up if you just run your next payroll. You have to push the dates out further. So it's not for use yet.
I actually saw a little bit of a different behavior on that. Let me just go back for a second here. I'm gonna go back to like an old payroll, and it's showing it now.
Oh,
So
okay. Because when I was playing with it 2 days ago, yeah, I
yeah,
had to
of
force
course.
it forward. Right.
Yeah. Well, welcome to being a QuickBooks user. All right. So in the slides, I put up just a quick, just kind of proof that if there's a paycheck, the button doesn't show up. Now let's talk about the new org charts feature. So let's be done with payroll. Okay. The new org chart features is pretty interesting. There's two sides of it. There is the sort of the QBO side, which is where you go and click on assign managers and you select which employee works under which other employee. So basically you have, who works under this person, who works under this person. You create a simple hierarchy. Okay, there's no dotted lines and there's none of that. You just create the hierarchy. And then when you go up to Workforce, which is the all-in-one HR platform that Intuit is developing, where the employee logs in and looks at their paychecks, their W-2s, they can also click on org chart and see who is the boss of who inside of the organization. Now, one thing I suggested to the folks when we were beta testing this is I would like to be able to create like departments and categories, like not just simple hierarchy. Not all companies are vertical, right? I mean, some companies have groupings and clusters of employees, and there's dotted lines and things like that. But it's a good start, I believe. It's pretty nice. I think Alicia likes this a lot because I've heard her rave about it. So if Alicia likes it, then I'm gonna have to like it too. Okay, so it's in the screenshots. I'm not gonna spend time going through like what that looks like. Let's go into QuickBooks Online features. So Alicia actually posted a screenshot of what the new modern login looks like, and eventually it's just the Intuit logo instead of QuickBooks and Credit Karma and everything else. And it gives you, I think, this information we've seen before, right? Your user ID and when you last accessed it. So it's just basically a change in the login page. So for those people that freak out because the login page looks different and they think it might be a scam or phishing or whatever, just keep in mind there is a new login page. It doesn't really change any additional functionality, I think. Alicia, do you have any notes on that?
No, I mean, they just looked like the appearance on this page, but I was kind of like leaning in on that, on the text there. A new look has arrived. Everything will still work the same way, but with a more modern design. That makes me wonder if this is just the first of a new interface, or maybe they're changing the font, maybe they're changing colors. I'm wondering if the whole QBO is about to get a new modern look, and that this is
Oh my gosh. You're gonna give me an aneurysm.
Well,
Yeah.
it gives me an aneurysm because I've got two 600-page books that are all screenshots. And if I have to, you may be seeing me head down in November taking hundreds of screenshots just for a new book.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to second somebody's comment in the live chat here, which is, who went into it and said, you know what we really need? You know what QuickBooks is missing? A new, more modernized login page. It's like, who cares about that stuff? Anyway, all right, we'll move on. All right, the next thing, which is really cool, really neat. I mean, like, really good job into it. I say good job, but I a little bit condescendingly say, what about an email or a letter saying thank you for giving you inspiration on this one? Because this was actually, it's been my idea for a very long time. But anyway, this is really cool. In the left navigation bar, you can bookmark, and I put any in air quotes, I mean, or in actual quotes, because it's not any page, but it's most pages. It's like a lot of them. It's just much better than before. It's amazing. It's incredible. I mean, really, really nice. So I will showcase this. I don't know, Alicia, if you've had time to play with this, but this is really, really neat. So essentially on the left navigation bar, you have your own default menu items. Okay. And then you have the option, and they added this maybe 2 years ago, where you can click on menu settings, customize menu, and then you can add and remove things. You can search within the bookmarks and look for anything particularly that you want. You add it, you click on save, and it changes essentially what your menu looks like. What they added is this little link here that says bookmark this page. And where this is really useful, it's like in bank registers. So for example, if I am in a bank register and I'm looking at, let's say, this PayPal account, and I want to always go back to that PayPal account all the time, always, then what I do is I click on edit bookmark, and I'm going to call this, I'm just going to edit bookmark, and I'm going to call this PayPal 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever, and then click on save. And then I could be on whatever page I'm in, and I want to go straight into the PayPal account. I literally just click on that, boom, and I go straight into the register. Now, the one thing I haven't experimented with is whether or not it's actually, it will jump straight to the account. I know that it puts the link up here, but because QBO is so weird, it defaults a lot of stuff to the default one. And that's what I mean by, it says any, but is it really, really any? You know what I mean? So, and the same thing happens with reports. So for example, if I go and run a P&L report, Okay, and then I click on, let's say, bookmark this page, and I put here P&L. Let's do P&L, and then click on save. And then I happen to be like, in whatever other page, and then I click on P&L. Okay, it goes into the last page you had on the report. So I'm going to show you why I mean this is a little bit quirky. So I'm going to go into like a P&L detail or something like that. And then I'm going to go back into another page, click on P&L. And this, oh, okay, so this one didn't work. And this is the thing that it's just like, it's weird. Like it works in some reports, it doesn't work in others. Actually, I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to do last year. I'm going to do class and click on run. And then I'm going, so basically I modify the report. So I'm going to go to edit bookmark and do P&L last year by class and click on save. And then I'm going to go out of it, go somewhere else. Okay. And then click here again. And essentially it goes to the default. So it's not any bookmark, it's most bookmarks. This is still a humongous step forward. I mean, humongous step forward. I love it. I am in love with the idea. The challenge I'm having is it doesn't get granular enough to go to a specific edited report or like as I mentioned, a specific account register. So all of a sudden I can use the specific account register. I could just use register, which is still great because I don't know why register is not a default thing in the shortcuts. But so any page you're in, you click on edit bookmark, you can add it. In some cases, it will add the specifics like edited reports. Specifics like edited reports or specific accounts. It doesn't do that yet, but it just gets you to the general section that you were in. Go ahead, Alicia.
Yeah, my absolute favorite use case is the reminders list because there's nowhere in the whole thing to go find the reminders if you're using scheduled reminders or
where is that? Is that in the recurring transactions?
You have to go to recurring transactions and then you have to click reminders, or you also see it on one of the dashboards. It has an alert across the top that says you have reminders. But I'm in my reminders list all the time because it helps me keep track of like making sure I've got all my moving pieces done. So I set the actual reminders active list instead of recurring transactions so I can go there.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so yeah, I just did it. I'm in whatever page, and then I click on. Why did I pick that one? And then I click on reminders list, and it takes me straight to the reminders. So it's a great step forward. We've had this in RightTool for almost 2 years at this point. With RightTool, we can go to specific edited reports. We can go to specific registers. So we do have we go a little bit more in depth, but I really, really think Intuit, you did a good job. Anytime you grab inspiration from RightTool to make QuickBooks better, it's actually a net positive for me. I just send me the postcard every once in a while saying thank you. And that's all I need at this point. All right. So that's what that is. And again, good job. Good first start. It just needs more. Okay. The other thing that they added is in the estimates and invoices page, one thing that was driving people nuts is that the ability for you to make general changes to it, okay? And this is not a good example because this file doesn't have the new look. Give me a second. I'm like the only person that still has a QuickBooks file with the old invoices, Alicia. I don't know. Do you have any files that still have the old invoices?
I stopped trying because the only way to keep on top of what's changing is to use them.
Right. Well, I can't even switch to the new one. It just errors out for some reason, but whatever. Okay, so down here it says more actions. And anytime you have a transaction that's already been saved, sometimes there's certain things that we want to do. We want to make a copy or a duplicate of it, delete it, void it, transaction journal, audit history, print packing slip. This more actions button, you used to have to click on manage, and it was sitting here on the top. So there was tons of feedback on this, and they received the feedback and they moved the actions button back to where it was before. It just be a more button there. And they also brought the receive payment up here. Again, partially inspired by RightTool because we added the receive payment button probably about 9 months ago at this point. So these two things are just significant changes to the invoice and estimate workflow that people were looking for. Okay, so let's talk about the new products and services / inventory updates page. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to go. So this is the new products and services page. And this is only in the new file. So let me create a new, let's do widget. Let's do shirt. I'm gonna do shirt. I'm just gonna create an item called shirt. I'm gonna make an inventory item, and I'm gonna do 50 on hand as of the beginning of this year. Save and close, and I have a new item called shirt. Okay. What QuickBooks has done is they've upgraded this screen, so you not only have an item, but you can have a variant on the item under it. So you can have a variant of the shirt under it. And the way it works is you click here where it says batch import. I don't know why you have to do it there. You just have to do it there. You go to batch import, and then you click on where it says products with variants. And then you come in here and you select, oh, actually, don't get me started on this. You type the name of the item because there's no drop-down menu on the screen. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but you have to type literally the name of the item, and then come in here and then select, in this case, a single parent or variant. So this one's going to be the parent, and then option 1. So this would be like the different options. So let's say option 1 in this case is size, and then we have here, let's say weight. Actually, let's do color. It makes more sense for shirts. So we have size, color, and maybe let's do fit. Okay. So we basically have three. We have an item that is going to have, I don't want to call it sub items because it's not sub items, it's variants. And then on the second line in this case, we're going to call it variant. And in here, we're going to do inventory. And then we're going to type here shirt again. And then in here, we're going to type size, and then we'll do M, and then we're going to type color. It's just crazy how you have to do all this stuff manually. And then we're going to do, let's say, blue, and then we're going to type fit, and then we're going to put, I don't know, slim, something like that, okay? And then in here, the purpose of this is that every one of these things can have a different price, different inventory, different everything. So let's say this one's going to be $10. And the income account, it will use the default income account of the item. And then you can have a purchase cost. Let's say the purchase cost is 8. And then quantity on hand, let's do 14 as of the beginning of the year. And the inventory asset account, it will pick up the same as the item. Then on the second one, I'm going to type it again. So let's do shirt. And then I have to come back here to inventory and then select here variant. And then type here size. And then this will be a large. And then the color would be, let's say, red. And then the fit will be, let's say, regular. This stuff drives me nuts how it's so manual. And probably a lot of folks, are not going to be using this tool just because it just feels so quirky to have to enter all these things manually. But you can have that. And then what else? Okay, that's it. So then I click on save. And that should create the sub items. And if there's an error, and I have to go read the error to see what I missed. So if there's an error here, it says item already exists. Okay, why are you telling me the item already exists? Driving me crazy. This is variant. Here we go. Let's just delete this one and then let's do save. And of course, and I don't want to, I forgot what the whole troubleshooting process here is. But I don't know what I'm missing here or why I'm missing something. I probably want to skip through it and maybe refer to another video or something as I go through the troubleshooting of it. But for some reason, I'm missing something in it and don't know why this is messing up. But I'm going to X out of here for a second. And let's see if I can edit the variants inside of this. I can't. Not happy about this. Okay, let's try this one more time. Let's go to import. And then we will do buy and sell. And this is shirt. Item type, in this case, inventory. Then let's do with, this will be with variants. So I missed a one here. Okay.
The peanut gallery says that you actually repeated one of the product names.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to add it to the current one, but let's just assume for a second that I have to create the item on the spot. So I'm gonna put big shirts. I'm going to try it again. I'm going to create a brand new product. I'm going to do it all on the fly here. So inventory, let's do size. And this one's going to be the parent. So size, color, and I'll skip fit for now. And then the next one's going to do the same thing. I'm going to do big shirts. And then this is going to be inventory. And this is going to be variant. And this will be size, large, and color blue. And then we'll do it one more time here. So can I duplicate? Yes, I can. Beautiful. And then we'll do S, and then we'll do red. Hopefully that will work. Okay. And then let me go into the pricing and give it different prices. So one will be $15, the other one will be $12. And let's also give it different cost elements. So let's do that. And different inventory quantity on hand. So let's say 14 and 17. Put this at the beginning of the year. Reorder point, let's do 60 and let's do 10 or something like that. Then I click save. Okay, hopefully that will take. Okay, that took. So long story short, if the item is already created, you can't add the variants afterwards. Why to do that? I don't know. Just such a quirky, weird rule. But you have to create the item on the fly. You have to create the item and the sub items immediately, and you can't edit them after the fact. So this is what it looks like. So there we go. We got big shirts. We have quantity on hand, which is a combination of the two that we have in stock. One of them has a reorder point that's the number is below the total quantity you have in stock. So it just gives you the little low warning, which is awesome. Then here on the, as I scroll a little bit to the right, and let me collapse this. So as I scroll a little bit to the right, we're going to see the price and the cost of the products themselves. If I go edit the product, in here, down here somewhere, you're going to be able to see the variants. Okay, actually, I have to go into the variant itself. Sorry, I'm going to go edit the variant. And then you are able to see that this is now called big shirts space hyphen space L/blue. And actually, hold on 1 second. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then it can have its own unique number. There's my variant options, L and blue, which I cannot edit. There is my reorder points. There's my quantity on hand. And I can have a separate description and a purchase description for each one. So I click on save, and then I can edit the other one here. And I can give it a different SKU number. And then you see all the pertinent information just for the item. So it's basically a way to organize items under a grouping per se, and also be able to see the total sort of across the board, the sum of all of them together. What's interesting about it is price and cost. It gives you this hyphen kind of just telling you that it's a range. It's a range because the different variants have different things. So Alicia, this might be the first time you see this. Do you have any notes on like what are your first impressions on this?
No, this is definitely first view for me. I'm really excited about it. I've had respect for the fact that they're trying to be the point of truth for multi-channel commerce, and the fact that there haven't been variants. Like, I used to have a jewelry company that had 7 different lines with 6 different lengths with 12 different colors, and we didn't even bother doing inventory because it was just way too cumbersome. So if something like this would have been a huge power solve for me back in that day.
Right. And the reason why this exists, and there's a specific reason for that, is because QuickBooks needs to, at least from a marketing perspective, they need to say that their software works with e-commerce. Like they need to say that you can connect your Amazon, that you connect your Shopify. They have to say that, number one, because they spent money, or they bought TradeGecko, and they bought whatever it's called, OneSaaS or whatever. They bought multiple technologies that integrate the data with e-commerce platforms. And the big issue that you're having is now they're realizing that there's a lot of variants, especially in Amazon. Like almost everything has a variant. So people were just like their inventory was just not working correctly, because there were every single variant was a separate inventory item instead of being the same inventory item with multiple variants under it. So this is the long goal here is to get QuickBooks to feel like it's a true e-commerce platform. I don't know when, it will feel like that, but this is the ethos
It's
behind it.
it's just step by step by step. They have to put the mechanism into place before they can do the integrations, just like we saw with payroll earlier. Question, Hector, just for clarification, you said that you can't add multiple variants underneath. Like right now, you have large blue and small red, but can you add an extra large blue right now, or no?
So there's no there's no like edit add a variant mechanism. So I would attempt to do it kind of the same way I was doing it before, where I would create I go to batch import, and this is the only like sort of logical way I can think of. I go here and I select this is a variant, right? And then go into size, and it would be let's say medium, and then the other one is color, and you said purple. Uh, Purple.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't
So
necessarily want to send you down a rabbit hole, but that was the biggest
right,
question.
right. So yeah. So I have based on the errors that I'm getting, I haven't figured out a mechanism to do it once the item is created. So once the item is created and the variants are created, I cannot see the mechanism. Like it just again, like there's not even a drop down menu here for the item name. So like I actually had to copy and paste the item name and know it or import it from a CSV file. So I really don't know. I don't know if I click on import CSV if it works. I mean, honestly, this is one of those features that I just have zero trust that I'm gonna get any client on this. So
I mean, the
not sure.
I just want to kind of, I joked in the chat that like I'm the little ray of sunshine, but I want people to really just get that when they're rolling out something that's complicated, they have to do it step by step by step. You can't expect them to roll out something that has all the features. They have to make sure the mechanics of the basics are working, which is why we should be slow to adopt new features, but we should play with them so that we can let them know what the holes are and put in the feedback so that they know what people need it to do that it doesn't do right now, so they know which direction to develop it. So, I have a love-hate relationship with that form of programming. I'm happy that I see the signs of the things to come. Am I mad that it doesn't do everything yet? No, because it takes years to develop a world-class software component. So if, Hector's having trouble figuring out how to put in additional variants, other people are also, so they'll have to figure that out too.
Right. There's a little checkbox here that says, check this box to override details of existing item. Okay, let's just see if that works. We'll just do save. That'll be the last attempt. And no. And again, honestly, if somebody from Intuit is watching and listening and they tell me, Hector, you were totally wrong. You forgot to press this button or that button. Email me. Let me know. I am totally 100% with you on that. But like, let me know, because if I can't figure out intuitively, could you imagine, like I've been using QuickBooks for so long and I drink, eat, sleep QuickBooks, you know what I mean? Like the average user is not going to be able to figure these things out. Okay. Anyway, we'll move on to the next thing here, which is inventory counts. And by the way, there's screenshots on all this stuff. Okay. So even if the way the demonstration just it felt like, oh, it got locked and, and we kind of ran into issues. There's screenshots on all this, so every single page, you can see exactly what everything looks like. So you can, when you try this on your own. But another thing that's working a little bit better is the filtering mechanism. So you have this really cool filtering mechanism. You can filter by category, by type, by active, by stock status, and by channel. So if you haven't connected to Amazon or Shopify or whatever, you can do that. So that's really, really neat as well. You could also grab a couple of these. You can just select them here, which is really, really cool. And then you can click up here where it says adjust quantity. And you click on adjust quantity, and it creates an inventory adjustment with the items that you created. How wonderful is that? It's completely awesome. It works beautiful and flawlessly. I think they did an awesome job with this particular feature. So I don't always criticize. Sometimes I give credit where credit's due. This is a great workflow. You select all the items you want to adjust. It works with regular items. It works with the variant items. It doesn't really matter. You click on save and close, and it creates the inventory adjustment for you. So that's beautiful. Reorder is also pretty neat. So what happens is when you create generally what you want to do is you want to have a preferred vendor. So this is kind of like the logic behind it. So we're going to have a preferred vendor here called, let's say, USA clothing or something like that, LLC. And this is where we buy all this stuff from. So the logic behind this is that if I have a preferred vendor and I select multiple items and I click on reorder, the logic is it will create a purchase order, and it should, I mean, in theory, it should select the vendor here. If it's not working, that's because QuickBooks never develops things all the way through. But the logic is that if all the items belong to the same vendor, it automatically creates a purchase order for you. It puts the items in there and it starts everything in quantity of one. Now that's also broken because the way the QuickBooks Desktop reorder works is it will actually get you back to the reorder point. So in theory, this should do, like if you look at 60 minus 18, the number that it should automatically populate for you is 42. And then in here, again, 60 minus 16 or whatever it is. So it should be, in theory, looking up the reorder points of each of these units and getting you back into the reorder point. That's the number that it should suggest, but it's not doing that. It's suggesting just one. In either case, great start. I'm just missing select the vendor for me if all the items are the same and bring me up to my reorder point, because that's what I would do. I mean, I've been working with inventory clients forever, and I can tell you this is basic expectations that people will have. Okay. The other thing that's really cool here is called cycle counts. So here in the More button, it's called inventory counts. And you click on inventory counts, and it's a little bit different than inventory adjustment. It's still an inventory adjustment, by the way, but it is a way for you to program a template. Imagine like a recurring template of inventory adjustment. It's probably the best way to think about it. So we go to start inventory count, and let's just call this shirt count. Okay, and let's assume that this file has shirts, pants, socks, all sorts of things. And then you can say, you know what? For this count, I only want to count these 2 items or whatever group of items that you have. And essentially, you created a template. Okay, so this is a template for counting. So then you go and that's here on the Add Products. This page is awesome. It has filters. Okay, by category, it has searches. So this is actually really cool. This an actual search field built into here. And then we go to a save and start counting. And eventually it takes you to a screen, which is a worksheet. It's a worksheet of your inventory adjustment. And then here it has the items already added for you. And here you can filter some of these things as well. And you can put some notes saying, did a full sweep of warehouse at 9 a.m. or whatever notes you want to add. And they said the new quantity is 5 and the new quantity is 17. You don't have the ability to select the date of this because it's a worksheet. It's a worksheet. So after you finalize the count, then you create the inventory adjustment, and then the inventory adjustment gets created for you automatically. And then you can view the adjustment here, and it gets created on today's date, and it doesn't allow you to change the default settings of the inventory adjustment. So the inventory adjustment account is always going to use the default account. For some weird, strange reason, it doesn't allow you to even edit that. Again, I don't know why, but that's just how they decided it was going to work. And then you get a link to the inventory count worksheet. So you always have the worksheet in front of you, and at any point that you want to do a new inventory count, you can do one or work off the worksheet. So it's just really, really neat, really interesting how this works. It's basically kind of an operating precursor to inventory adjustments. So that's the other major feature that I added on inventory. So again, I added screenshots of every single page, every single thing in here in the slides, just in case you need to review that on your own. Alicia, any thoughts on that, or should we jump to new shipping features?
I was actually talking to somebody, but James asked a question that I don't know if it got answered. Can it limit the count to selected just certain categories?
So when you create the inventory count and you click on either all products or I'll select subset and I go to add products, you can go in here, filter the category, and it would just show you the category, and then you will click on select all, and only those categories will show in this page.
Thank you.
Okay. But there's no like setting where you can say, oh, by the way, you cannot use inventory counts unless it's this category. It's a process that you do on every single try, right? Every single action that you take with this. All right. So let's move on to, and I'm going to go ahead and sign out and switch to another company file that I set up shipping for. And Alicia, have you tried the shipping feature yet?
No, I've been so looking forward to it. The next time somebody orders a book that we're sending, so like it's on my to-do list, and I'm just like waiting for somebody to order something I have to mail.
Yeah, so I have good news. I went and I spent $20 to be able to do this, to actually show you the entire workflow. So in the slides itself, and if you miss anything on the slides, I actually took screenshots of the entire workflow on this, right? So you're going to see what every single screen looks like, all the way to the point where you actually get the label, okay? So I'm going to walk you through that right now. It's actually a really neat feature. I mean, this is probably the first time in a very long time that QuickBooks releases something, and I have zero criticism for this, okay? Now, I do have some ideas on how to make it better, but I have zero criticism. The whole workflow, it's beautiful. It just works really well. So what you do is you go and you create an invoice, and you have to turn on this, the option under custom. You have to turn on ship to. If you don't turn on ship to, you don't see the button down here at the bottom. This is why some people are saying, I don't see the button there. And it's because you have to turn on ship to. So when you turn on ship to, and let's say I select a customer here, okay, and the customer has to have an address. So I'm just going to put an address here, 1234 West Drive, Miami, Florida, 33331. Okay, so when you create the invoice, and then we'll add all the items that whatever items that we're sending, okay, you have a little button down here that says Buy Shipping Label, okay? So you click on Buy Shipping Label, and from the right-hand side, you get the shipping label information. It's going to have the address of your company, like basically the from address, and then two, it will bring in all the information that you have in that customer profile, okay? Then you get to choose how big is the package. So let's say, for example, it's 12 by 18 by 6 or whatever, right? So the dimensions of the package, and you say it's 2 pounds and 3 ounces. Okay, of course, you're going to have to do your own measurements, your own weighing. You can't plug in your, what's it called, your scale and get it weighted for you. And like you have to do that manually. Then you click on Get Shipping Rates. And right now it's linked to, I think it's the US Post Office. And then, okay, this is not a real ship to address. Okay, let me put my mailbox address here. So that's actually pretty good. I like that. Okay, so it detected an address that wasn't good. So let me just get shipping rates here. Okay, so it's actually going out. It's checking what your US Post Office mail is. It tells you here when it will arrive. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, like, are you kidding me? How good this is? Like it wasn't quirky. It just showed me the address, the dimensions, and I press a button and it gave me the rates. This is awesome. Now Intuit is there's a little thing here that says rates subject to change. I don't know what that means. Like if I print the label, I assume it means that maybe tomorrow the rates can change. But once you print the label, the rate is what it is. So you're not gonna get like surprised by this. And what's also really cool is I'm actually in QuickBooks Online Simple Start. So this actually works across the board, all the versions of QuickBooks Online. As long as you're shipping something or your invoice is marked with a shipping address, you're able to do this. So then you pick the shipping label that you wanna print out. You click on Review and Buy. I already went in and I put my credit card in there, and you have to add funds. So I'm skipping that part because I actually had to do that prior. But when you go do this for the first time, it's going to take you a little pop-up is going to show up, and it's going to be what's called the ShipEngine integration. ShipEngine is the company that they're using for this. Okay, and you go in there and you put your credit card information, and then you tell it how much money you want to add. So I added $10 or $20 or whatever. You add the funds, and then once you get to it, you get an email saying, "Oh, by the way, we just added $10 to your ShipEngine account." And basically, you have to have money in there for you to be able to produce the label. So then you click on Buy and Print. It just gives you this little sample page here. Really, it just says, hey, make sure it fits into whatever page you want to print it at. You go to buy and print, and it'll just create the PDF for you. It's just beautiful. I always want to cry in terms of like how awesome this integration is, how simple it is, how non-quirky it is. It was just one of the most pleasant experiences I've had integrating anything in QuickBooks Online. And I just got a PDF with a label. I could print it and I'm done. I could print it on a label printer and it works. I could print on a regular paper, label printer, regardless of what you do. This is just absolutely beautiful. The next thing is that once that's done, you actually have a little, there's actually a track shipping button in the bottom here. And when you click on track shipping on the right-hand side, you get a link. This is awesome. I love this. Look at this, how beautiful it is. You click on that and it takes you to the Google tracking page, okay? So to take it one step further, I would grab this URL and copy and paste that in here and put here, track your package or something, track your package, okay? That would be amazing, okay? Track your package, maybe here, or maybe down in the customer notes section. Like that's gonna make this feature really worth its while. Why? Because then when you go send, the invoice, okay, and people are looking at the invoice, they see the link right there, and maybe depending on their computer, they should be able to like click on this thing and go into it. Of course, like QuickBooks has to figure out how to make that stuff like fully linkable. But again, one less step for me to have to copy and paste that tracking number or that link into my client. So I think that just that little piece is missing. Regardless, I have no criticism from the go ahead, Alicia.
The tracking number field in the invoice, did that auto-populate or did you paste it in there? I was talking to someone.
No.
Because I saw the tracking number in the invoice when you opened the invoice. So the tracking number is there.
So then I take it all back. Good job. But one step further, I want to see the link. I want to see the URL. So I take it back. QuickBooks, good job. You put it on the tracking number field. So I take back the fact that you missed the step of putting the tracking number. Thank you, Alicia, for bringing it out. But I think I would love to see this in a way that I can just like copy and paste and go over. So thank you. Good catch, Alicia, by the way. You have more of an auditor's eye than I do today. But yes, beautiful job. You brought the tracking number in there. I think I want to see it here and I want to see it with a link. See, Alicia, this is why I keep you around. You keep me honest sometimes. All right. Let's go to here we go. And this is kind of what I said. I put it in the slide saying it would be nice to have that. All right. Okay. So we finished all the QuickBooks Online stuff. Now let's just quickly go through what they added in QuickBooks Desktop. Now, what's cool about this is these were new features added to QuickBooks Desktop in June. Okay. So this wasn't tied to QuickBooks 2025, or it wasn't tied to a release year. It was just a midstream update, which is really cool because it means that they're going to be releasing things a lot quicker. And now that QuickBooks Desktop Pro and Premier are in the process of stop sale and being phased out and all that stuff, and everything is subscription, do you really need like 2024, 2025, 2026? Yeah. Like really, Alicia, do we still need that? Microsoft Office did that, right? Like Excel is no longer Excel 2020 or 2025 or whatever. It's just the software with an update. Okay. So one of the things I think probably will happen at some point is that the years will just be reduced, and you would just see updates in the middle of the year like this. So anyway, in June, they added 3 things. One, a search in the class list, and that's across all versions. In Enterprise, they added prepayments to estimates, which were previously on the sales orders, and the new inventory turnover report. And I also want to add really quick, and let me just stop sharing and just share QuickBooks Desktop by itself. I'm also beta testing some features that we're not going to discuss today. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is it might give you a little bit of peace of mind to think that QuickBooks is still developing things on QuickBooks. I tell you, there's brand new features coming out at some point. And I don't know if it'll be 2025 or just be like a midstream update like that. But QuickBooks is still spending money on developing money on making QuickBooks Desktop better. So anyway, so first one, if I go into my class list, there is a search here in the top. Believe it or not, you're prior to June, you didn't have a search box in the class list. You had it in other screens, chart of accounts, item list, but it's in the class list now. So if I type something here, it can filter it and it can show me, just the ones that contain that. That's across all versions, Pro, Premier, Enterprise. On the Enterprise stuff, they added really, really neat feature, which is being able to create prepayments on estimates. Now, this is technically not that new because you were able to create prepayments on sales orders, but now you can do it on estimates. So when you go and create an estimate, there's a button on the top right that says receive payments. So I'm going to select an estimate here. The estimate has to be active. So if it's inactive, and then you try to create a prepayment, let me show you really quick. You try to make a prepayment, it tells you you can receive prepayment on an inactive estimate. So you have to make the estimate active. It needs to be active. And then you click on the top right where it says receive prepayment. You click on that. And then I haven't turned that on. So I got to go into preferences. And there's a new preference called prepayments. I click on prepayment settings, turn that on. And look at this. It's not negative AR anymore. I can actually use a true liability account for my prepayments. So can I create one on the fly? Of course, I can't create one on the fly into it. Driving me crazy. Okay, let's go into the chart of accounts and let's create a new account called customer deposits. So let's do customer deposits. Okay, customer deposits. Here we go. Save and close. Go back into my receive estimates preferences, turn it on, type customer deposits. Why are you telling me that? Okay, I think I may have created as a current asset by mistake. So let's see if I did that. Yes, I did. See, lesson 1, kids, you got to pay attention to the account types. It needs to be an other
and
current
they are
liability.
The chat's like, Hector.
Yeah. So these webinars are 90 minutes long. I try as hard as possible not to go over 90 minutes. So I'm just kind of maybe trying to go too fast here. Okay. So here's customer deposits. It needs to be a current liability account for it to work. Nice thing, again, before when you receive a payment that wasn't a prepayment, it was negative AR. So that's actually really, really progress moving forward. So you go ahead and you create your estimate. Go back to estimate. I click on receive payment. I can now receive a payment against no invoice, which is awesome. Okay. And this is not an invoice. This is an estimate. Okay. So I'm going to receive a prepayment. Let's say it's 5,000. I'm going to date this a couple of days back. Click on, and there's a little checkbox here. It says, this is a prepayment on, and it gives you the 2 choices, estimates, sales orders. See that? So you can do it in either one. So estimates or sales orders. I love this. It's a beautiful job. I mean, into it. Oof, you're making me sweat here. This is awesome. Okay. I love this. Okay. I've been asking for prepayments forever. This is such an important thing for like inventory type clients. Now there's no prepayments on the, it's gotta be, it needs to be, what did it say about the dates? It should be after the estimate date, of course. Okay. So that's interesting too. Okay. It has to be the same as the estimate date or after. And what's also really cool, now the estimate itself says prepayment applied. This is something you never saw before in QuickBooks Desktop. You could never see a payment applied to a non-posting transaction like an estimate or a sales order. And then let's say, okay, we finally go and convert the estimate into an invoice. Okay. And why is this so little? Let me just put a bunch of ones. Let me just do it. I'm going to do it again. Let's pick up the estimates and let's create that into an invoice. And let's do 100%. Let's do 100% here. Click OK. Okay. Lot number. Okay. All right. So then my invoice is created. And then when I go and receive the payment, okay, it says right here, this customer has available credits. Would you like to apply them to the invoice? And then you click on yes. And then now you see available prepayments on this invoice. So either sales order or invoice, it recognizes that, it knows that, and then allows you to apply that, and then you receive the payment for the balance. Now, behind the scenes is really interesting. A journal entry is created. So I'm going to click Save and Close. And for my fellow accounting super nerds that want to see that journal entry, because I know you, okay, I'm going to go and run a journal entry. Give me a second. My mouse is acting weird. Okay, so let's do journal entry. And then I'm going to go back and take a look at that journal entry. Where are you? There it is. Okay, so 2 journal entries are created. Journal entry number 1, a credit to accounts receivable is being created, and then $5,000 are going to this account called Account for Free Payment Transfers. This is a hidden account that is just used as a pass-through. And then you see the accompanying one once you apply the credit, once you apply the credit, where you move it out from customer deposits and put it into account repayment for transfer. So you see the exact workflow of how this works to ultimately place it in accounts receivable. So you get to see the two journal entries, which you cannot modify. So it's pretty good. You try to modify it, it tells you, I can't touch this because it's linked to a prepayment. And up here in the top, it says it's prepayment. So you know it's a journal. So for accounting purposes, it's a journal entry, but it's letting you know it's not a real journal entry per se. Okay. And then people, go ahead.
Oh, Mark is asking a great question: is how does this affect a cash basis company?
Right. So the way cash basis works is the payment has to be applied. So if you have a cash basis company with a payment that's not applied, that payment is just sitting on the balance sheet. It's sitting on the balance sheet as customer deposits. It's not going to make the assumption, because it's cash basis, that I should recognize the $5,000 into the P&L. Okay. QuickBooks uses invoice payments as the application of cash versus accrual. Okay. And there is cash basis companies that could have customer deposits. I mean, it's not always 100% ironclad. Every money you receive is income. Like there are some cases where you could have a cash basis company or a modified cash basis where some of the stuff is being held for next year or whatever, especially if it's a refundable deposit. But anyway, the whole cash basis concept of deposits going in as income, they don't apply here. It stays on the balance sheet. Okay. Yes. And one of the questions I'm seeing is, I'm looking at the 2 journal entries. Let's just go back and forth and just revert this. Okay. So it looks like accounts receivable is only used once, right? So people are freaking out. They're saying, oh, where's the other balancing entry? The payment was. So the payment went to accounts receivable. Okay. So the original payment went to accounts receivable. Then this removed it from accounts receivable and put it in the temporary account. And then the next one moved it from the temporary account and put it into customer deposits. That's how I did it. But the trick behind this, and the reason why it needs to do 2 journal entries, and this is only for my super QuickBooks desktop nerds, is you cannot have more than 1 AR and 1 AP account in the same journal entry. This customer deposits, even though it's an other current liability, mechanically, it's actually an AR account. And that's how it's able to pick up the amount when you go create the invoice, and it recognizes it as a credit because this is another AR account. But so that's why they can't use the same, because it would just skip, why would you want to do 2 journal entries? It has to skip it through the, what's it called? Through a clearing account. So this account for prepayment transfer is a clearing account. It's inactive. It's in your chart of accounts, but it's only used for this specific purpose. Okay. Michael's asking how to refund the prepayment. I haven't tried that, but I would say, and I am going to do one of those things that I shouldn't do, which is experiment doing a live webinar. But I am going to say, using all my QuickBooks instincts, let me go and see if I can find that payment. So let's go find that payment. Give me a second. Let me find that payment. And I'm going to make the assumption that this is going to just work by writing a check to accounts receivable. So let me go into amount. Let's type, was it 5,000, Alicia? 5,000? Okay, there we go. There's my payment. Okay, perfect. There's my payment. So let's see if I can delete the whole thing. So let's go into delete. Okay, I assume that's going to delete the journal entries with it. Yes, it did. It deleted the journal entries with it. That's great. And then we're going to go ahead and receive let's go to estimates again. And let's go back. And let's go receive the payment. Let's receive a payment for let's say $3,000. Let's click on save. Save a new. We'll go back to it. There is no refund to client workflow in here. So only thing I can think of, and it's a really good question, is I'll write a check to this client. What was the client's name again? Okay, Ernesto. This guy. So I'll write a check to this client right here. We'll do it to no accounts receivable, customer deposit, sorry. We'll put it in customer deposits, and then we will put the customer name here again. And again, I don't think they've built a workflow for this, but I'm just kind of like thinking like this is the way it will work. And then I would save. And then I would go into the balance sheet here. Good question, by the way, Michael. Thank you for making me think. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to think about these type of things. So let's do, where's my customer deposit? Let me turn on the ability to see all the accounts. All. Okay. So there's my customer deposits. Okay. And that just, there's the positive and the negative. So I think it would just work through like the way you do any trust account or any account where you're sort of holding customer money and then refunding afterwards. It will work the exact same way. Okay. All right. And the last thing here, was there a last thing? Yeah, the inventory turnover report. So it's pretty simple. Basically, we have a new report, guys. We go into reports, inventory turnover by item. You get a warning message saying, warning, this is a very confusing report. You've never seen this before. We're going to click on continue. And then we get a brand new report we've never seen before. So we get this turnover ratio. Okay, if you don't know what turnover is, for the sake of saving time here, just go to ChatGPT and say, what is a turnover report? There's turnover days, okay, on your inventory. There's the last sell date. That's awesome. There's the cost per unit. There is the sales price. There's your quantity on hand. There is reorder point. There is your total cost of goods sold for the period. There is your closing stock. There's your opening stock, so beginning balance, ending balance. That you need those numbers for the turnover report. There's your purchases, and there's your average inventory value on hand through the period. So through this fiscal year, the average inventory you had for that item across all units, this is not per unit, this is across the board, is this. And it uses all these numbers to calculate the magic number here, which is your turnover days and your turnover ratio. And basically that means how many days it takes to sell one unit of that product. Basically what it means. That's what the turnover days means. Now, I think total sales is missing from this report. I've already given the team that feedback. Like I would like to see total sales. I don't know why total sales in units is not here, but it is what it is. And that's it, everybody. Thank you very much. I want to add two quick notes. One, like I said, I'm working on I've been beta testing the new version of QuickBooks. I'm going to call it 2025. That's going to be released at some point, like it does every year, end of September, beginning of October. So there is some new features coming. So excited about that. Absolutely. Actually, am I sharing my screen, Alicia? I guess I'm not. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. So I can't discuss that, but I just want to get you excited as a QuickBooks Desktop user that there will be some new things. It'll be like this. It'll be a couple of things. It's not going to be completely like life-changing or anything like that. There's my email address on the screen, and I will, which is hector@garciacpa.com. If I didn't cover something, whatever, let me know. And finally, one last plug. If the next time I'm going to be in person chatting with other fellow accountants and QuickBooks Power users will be in Hollywood, Florida, October 16th to the 19th. So REFRAME 2024, if you want to come join me, come join Alicia and about 150 other forward-looking accountants and industry leaders that are going to be setting up what the new communication strategy platform for accounting professionals will be for years to come. So thank you, everybody, and I will see you next quarter. Thank you, Alicia.
Thanks. This was fun.